All right.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bread of Life channel. I'm so excited to be here with Tayler. She's a cell biologist, and she's going to be talking to us about how science points to God. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Right. So I study microtubules in terms of causing neurodegeneration. So whenever you have something that destabilizes microtubules, it causes neurodegeneration. And I actually have found a research model where we can easily view this and see if the microtubules are being disturbed by different medications or substances to try to prevent, neurodegeneration from different substances.
Awesome. Well, you can find Tayler on Twitter and Instagram. I've put where to find her in the description of this video, so you guys can subscribe to her or follow her, whatever you guys call it. I don't use any of those Twitter or Instagram. But okay, so how do our scientific observations point to God?
Well, our scientific observations are suggesting that naturally things like life could not have occurred. Just based on basic biology, you need certain living components to create things that don't naturally create in nature. So this suggests that this could not have happened by natural means, such as abiogenesis in the start of life. So there's just no scientific explanation for things, and there's scientific impossibilities for things like the start of life, which suggests that there was some type of divine intervention.
Well, now a lot of people hear that and they say, well, just because we haven't found an explanation for how life developed yet doesn't mean that there isn't one. We just need more time to research.
Yeah. The more time that we research and the more that we're finding out about the cell, the more intricate we're finding out it is. So the more research we're doing on the cell, the more impossible the theory becomes. And that's why there's no working theory. And so there's no working theory scientifically to how life began, and it's only getting worse with time as we're learning about the cell.
Well, now a lot of people are going to be hearing that and they're going to say, that's not true. That's not true at all. We've shown how every step of the process of life could have come about. And so there are people who are going to just totally disagree with you.
They're not scientific. They're not biologists. They don't know anything about the field. It's interesting how atheists act like they know more science than actual scientists. So tell them to come debate me.
Okay. Well, you guys, you heard the challenge. So, well, can you explain more about what you mean that, we have no explanation? Like, what are the problems with abiogenesis?
Okay, so the current theory, which there's no actual consensus on how life began because there's no working explanation. So some people say RNA world hypothesis is the current model, but considering that RNA doesn't naturally form in nature, and abiogenesis scientists, original life scientists, actually acknowledge this, and so they're still debating, like, because there's some people saying, okay, well, RNA first is impossible. Well, metabolism first is also impossible. So then we're just kind of left shaking our heads, like, what's going on here? But yeah, so can you repeat the question?
Oh, it was just okay,
So,
wait, where was my question?
Possibilities. Okay, so
Yes, yeah.
possibilities are that water would have needed to be been there for life to begin, but if water was there, things tend to disperse, so that's a big problem. The free energy problem, things like RNA needs a lot of energy to come together, and that's why we have enzymes that bind them together. But in nature, there would not be a lot of energetic RNA, like say nucleotides, that are able to make those bonds that don't happen in nature. And even if there were, they would have become destabilized by the other components that are present on primordial Earth. And so there's many impossibilities. There also needed to be oxygen, but oxygen couldn't have been there because it would have oxidized things like DNA. And we haven't even began to understand step one, which is how the basic components of RNA formed, other than that the furthest stuff we've gotten in this research is one RNA nucleotide, and that's created in a lab with the use of formaldehyde, which we do not believe was present on primordial Earth. And that's just step one. That does not account for all of the other components of the cell that needed to be there. And then from there, we don't understand how those RNA molecules came together. So there's just many impossibilities, and that's why there's not even a working theory. But scientists, they admit that we don't know how this happened, but somehow atheists start propagating that we have it all figured out, whenever the actual origin of life scientists themselves say that we don't have it figured out. And this is obviously promoting atheism and lying in terms of science.
Mm. Well, so now you mentioned to me that you feel like the public is being misled
Right.
with regard to this. So, like, who do you think is misleading the public, and how are they misleading?
Okay, so say that there's a minor discovery made in the origins of life hypothesis, such as, we were able to build a nucleotide in the lab. Then the media comes and propagates that we have like some working theory, and this is just propagated. But the actual origin of life scientists will say, no, there's so many problems with the theory. So in terms of RNA world hypothesis, if this was the case, then there couldn't have been water, because RNA would have been hydrolyzed. So now you have to figure out, okay, well then where did the life begin if it didn't begin in water? Because it couldn't have been RNA world hypothesis. And the scientists will acknowledge this. But if the media gets its hands on it, they tend to exploit it in a way that scientists understand what's going on, and that we even have a theory, when we're nowhere even close. We're not even to step one. So they make it sound like we understand it all, and this is why many atheists wrongly believe that we understand it all. And then they go propagating that we have a working theory, or we could possibly figure this out, when they've never. You can ask an origin of life scientist that the origin of life is only getting a harder and harder problem to solve.
Well, now I've heard statistics about like the majority of biologists, like are atheists, and so like if what you're saying is true, why do you think so many biologists, don't see what you're seeing? Is that true? First of all, what do you think about, like, do you think in your experience, you're working with biologists? Sorry to interrupt you. You're working with biologists, so what's your experience with biologists? Does that ring true?
I mean, they don't tend to be atheists from what I see. And I saw a different statistic, but maybe we're getting different stats from different places. So, but I mean, that doesn't really explain anything if they are an atheist. But the stat I saw was that most scientists working in the field are not atheists. So maybe we're just getting our stats from different places. But I don't see how that would even be relevant. And a lot of biologists, I've asked people that I work with about original life, they just say, oh, well, we don't know, or they just don't really think about the question or the problem. So I got interested in this. I've always wondered how life came about. I was not religious growing up at all. So I started studying biology. In sixth grade, I asked my biology teacher how life came about, and she almost seemed stunned by the question. And she said atoms wanted to create more atoms, which makes no sense at all. So I was not satisfied with that answer. And so I've kind of been on a pursuit to understand how life was created from a scientific perspective, not from a religious perspective. But as I got deeper into the field, I realized that, this is impossible. It just could not have happened. And so, yeah, I got interested in biology from, how did life arise? And my interest in how life arose was not from a religious perspective, but looking into the science of it, I became religious because it really showed me that, wow, like there must have been some intervening force to create life, because there's just scientifically, there's impossibilities and by far no explanation. There's no explanation at all from a scientific perspective. So that's why I started like believing in God and looking into other answers, because science doesn't give them, and it's not even getting close. It's getting further away from them. because the more we found out, the further away we're getting, as I mentioned. So people say, oh, as time goes on, like we're going to figure out something. No, the time is not on the biologist side. And whenever they created the theory of abiogenesis, that was Darwin who created that theory. They thought that cells were balls of jelly. But now we know that the cellular cells have more advanced machinery that humans can even create. So like they're like, whoa, stop, like, because we're getting further away from the answer of how life arose. The cells are not balls of jelly, and we have not revised the theory of how life arose, abiogenesis, which doesn't have a working theory. So yeah, and that's how I started believing in God.
Wow, that's amazing.
And if you could show that video.
Yeah, let's pull it up.
Yeah. So these are the processes that would have needed to occur for the first cell. Here is RNA production right here, that they're saying RNA formed in primordial conditions. Here's RNA being formed right now and transcribed from DNA. Now, if you think that could happen on a desolate planet, then go ahead and believe that. But this is the production of RNA real time in the cell. So that's what it looks like. Most people don't understand what we're talking about here because they have no visualization. And here's the creation of a protein from RNA, which also they think could have happened on primordial Earth.
So, do you want to kind of explain what's happening with this process?
Okay, so you can.
Do you want me to go back?
Yeah, because since we're talking about RNA world hypothesis.
Okay, all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, you can start at the beginning.
Okay.
So here is machinery using DNA to transcribe RNA. This is the only way we know how RNA is produced. On primordial Earth, we did not have this enzyme there to go and make it and put the RNA together. And even if RNA did come together, there's no code for it. Like it's like a random sequence of RNA. How does that suggest a protein? Like the chances are it would not. And so here in this, and so let's just stop there for a minute.
Okay.
As you can see, that is how RNA is produced in the cell. It's much more complex than people think it is if they're not in the field. But we're still trying to fully understand this machinery. And like I said, humans are still trying to mimic it because it's so effective. So yeah, I just wanted to give a visualization of what we're talking about here and what it was required for these processes that would have needed to be there for the first cell to arise. And it's truly amazing to even watch it. I mean, it's amazing as is, much less coming from dirt. Nearly impossible.
Yeah. Should I go on to the next part?
Yeah, and so basically the cell works by DNA to RNA to proteins. And here's the RNA being transcribed or translated to make a protein. The protein's coming out the top in red, and these are different tRNAs bringing in the different amino acids to make a protein. And there's the protein coming out of the top. So, say we did have RNA on the primordial Earth, then how does a protein get created whenever you don't have that mechanism there to create it? So then, and RNA is very unstable anyway. So, and then the first cell would have also needed to reproduce, and that means the DNA replication. And in this video, you're going to see what DNA replication looks like in the cell. This is going on in your body right now. It's truly amazing. So this is the replication of DNA.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this, to me, it's clear that this is like a sophisticated machinery. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. It is truly amazing. I'm not saying the fact that it's amazing makes it, that's why it comes from God. I'm saying because it's impossible for this to come out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's truly amazing. People talk about biology, but they don't even see like what they're talking about. And I think it's important to show these videos and show exactly what we're talking about here and what these people believe came from nothing, which isn't even scientifically sound.
Yeah, can you tell us a little more about like your process of discovery? Because this is really fascinating that like you didn't grow up religious. So like, can can you talk about more about the moments that were important to you where it was kind of like, aha, yes, it must be God?
So I've always been a very, very curious person. I'm always, I've just always been curious since I was very young about how, like, why are we here? You know, stuff like that. That's why I got involved in science. I did research on abiogenesis in undergrad to try to answer these questions. And whenever I saw that it's basically scientifically impossible, that's when I had to start reconsidering my beliefs. And that's why I recommend anybody to look into abiogenesis. If you have a scientific mindset like I do, and you're curious how we got here, I suggest looking into it because it might just convert you as well.
Cool. And, you know, Dr. James Tour has an amazing, like, 13-part series on abiogenesis on his channel. And maybe I'll put those links in the description later, because have you watched that by any chance?
I'm usually just working. Like, I haven't even had much time to really be looking into this lately. I've been doing so much research. I did my qualifying exam and I have to be getting data every week. So I'm kind of busy.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, I'll look into him and I highly recommend, I think he's the chemist, right? The synthetic chemist?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard about him. He's awesome.
Yeah. So guys, I know a lot of you have put questions in the chat, and I'm going to start bringing those up, but you know how it is with the chat. I cannot go back and look at every single question. I'm going to quickly scan it. If you have a question that's really important, then please do put it in again, because just in case I don't see it here. So, okay. Let's see. Stephanie says, perhaps I used the wrong. Oh, wait, this is a private conversation. Let's see. I'm looking for your comments. And are you scanning through them too, Tayler, right now?
Yeah. I would love to answer questions.
Okay. Okay, guys. Oh my gosh, there's so much in the chat, but so please do re-put your questions, because I cannot look at all this. But I did notice that Brian Stevens wondered why not pick Allah, and he asked earlier, like, why did you pick the Christian God? But actually, you haven't said anything about which idea of God you believe in. Do you want to talk about that on this? We didn't say whether we were going to talk about your beliefs about God.
Well, I mean, deciding which God is your God is, like, you know, a personal decision. I'm like, so I haven't prepared any type of answer for this question, but I think believing in God is step one. And if you're still a atheist, like, and you want to go down the same path I did, do that. But if you don't even believe in a God, then why would we start debating, like, which God is the right one or whatever? I think it's a big transition to go from atheist to theist in itself. So then, you know, deciding which God is right is a whole nother, like, conversation.
Yeah, I don't really think you can get to the Christian God through science, but, you know, I do think, like, you discovered. What's that?
I mean, possibly. I've heard people explain, like, that, you know, Jews here historically existed and fulfilled prophecies that were, like, you know, went on. But I've heard people say they believe in Jesus through a scientific lens. But I don't have, like, I haven't looked into that very much. I'm pretty busy.
Okay.
I do read the Bible.
You what?
I do read the Bible, for sure.
Cool. Okay, so Danish Debater said, interesting Twitter. I have to wonder, she hid her university name. Why?
Because I have stalkers. There's really creepy people out there. Like, you'd be surprised some of the messages I get on Twitter. I'm, like, kind of scared. Like, people are really creepy. Not even just, like, trolling me, but just, like, you know what I mean, like, stalkers.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Terrence Hosing says, when did she get to any God? So I guess how long have you believed in God?
Since undergrad.
Okay. Jerome wants to know, can we ask your guest where she's currently sitting?
I'm sitting in a lab. I work here every day.
Cool. What is your work like? Can you give us an example about like what you
Yeah,
do?
so I just have to take care of my research model. I've been imaging. I posted a picture on Twitter recently of me imaging microtubules. It's so amazing to watch them come together. I wish you could have added a video of that. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. So yeah, I just reculture and image, and I'm getting the materials for my next experiment. I'm going to be seeing if aluminum alters microtubule stability, because I've read that it's a potential neurotoxin. And if I know the first mechanism of how aluminum is causing neurotoxicity, then we can possibly answer that question. Like how neurotoxicity is from different substances. That's what I'm working on.
Cool. Okay, so Terrence wants to know, he says, it appears Tayler is saying if there is no working theory that points to life coming about naturally, how does this point positively to a God?
Because it didn't come about naturally. So there had to be some type of intervention.
So, she did, I don't know, maybe you weren't here earlier, Terrence, but she talked about several things that kind of, several conditions that make it like very implausible or impossible for life to assemble itself, like
I'm
the
thinking
presence
about
of
making
water.
a video about all of those reasons, because I mean, you can just go down the list. Yeah, I'm considering doing that, and all of the impossibilities on the theory. I actually have a paper written on it that I wrote in undergrad. It had to deal with things about like amino acids, and there's only left-handed that ones in the cell, but in nature they would have formed to be left and right-handed, so there would not be a polymer formed. Things like the water problem, the oxygen problem, the free energy problem. Like I should, make a YouTube. I don't have a YouTube channel, so I'm pretty new to all of this, but that would be a good video, just like going through all of the impossibilities. But if you have any questions about any of them, I'll answer.
Cool, thank you. Neslig wants to know, is this going to be an open hangout? So are you saying you want me to subject my guest to all of you guys?
Let's do
Not
it.
today. I didn't ask her to do that today.
No,
But
I'll do it. I'm not like, I'm open to talking to anybody.
Oh, wow.
I think
Well,
it's easier to talk to people than to just like give a lecture, So I'd be
oh, wow.
to anybody.
Well, maybe we can let me think about that for a few minutes, because I feel like it's kind of
I understand.
not good to spring it on you.
No,
It's okay.
yeah.
Okay, so maybe we'll do that at the end, guys. So, wow, that's but we are gonna probably not make this too long, but we will. I guess we will let you guys come on. So, I'm looking for any other questions here. Okay, is this a question? And to say we don't have explanations is a huge stretch. We do have reasonable hypotheses. Are they 100%? No, that's not proof for God. Okay, what do you want to say to this, Tayler?
I want to say the Origin of Life scientists got together recently for a convention, and they all met up in Tokyo, and they talked about where we're at, which is not even step one. These are the scientists working on it themselves, saying that we don't have explanations. So if you want to hear it from people who actually work on it themselves, I can send you this paper of a synopsis of the Origin of Life meeting with scientists from around the world. Yeah, they'll happily tell you that we don't have an explanation right now. So a huge stretch. I mean, it's what it is. That's just what it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And if you have any other explanations, I mean, they're obviously not scientific. So if you need an explanation for something, but science can't answer it, then you at least need to start opening your mind to other possibilities. And atheism is such a closed mindset. Like you think that we're all You know, it's just to not believe in anything higher than us is a very closed mindset, in my opinion. But I used to be that way until I started looking into stuff.
Well, before then we do this thing of allowing people to get on here. And guys, please, if you're going to come on here, be respectful to my guest. I really don't want this to turn into a dumpster fire. Okay. So it's really gracious of you, Tayler, to be willing to like let anybody on and talk to anyone. But I do really want to make sure that, you know, this is a good experience for Tayler. So at least just be respectful if you come on. But before we do that, I just want to ask you, why for you is it important to share what you've learned about how science points to God? Like,
yeah, I think it's very important for me to share because there's not many scientists willing to come out and share this to the public. I think I mentioned that scientists don't like admitting that they don't understand stuff. Like, that's just how it is. And I think it's wrong to push on to the public that we have these things figured out, because now you have people in the chat who actually think that we do, which is completely wrong. And it's like pushing people to atheism. Just be honest in our findings. Be honest in the scientific understanding of something or where we're at scientifically. Don't lie. And in the media is the worst about it. So there might be a paper that comes out, and then the media will like make huge assumptions from this paper. And then people usually look at media, like instead of actual research, people usually look at media sites, which is wrong. Like, go look at scientific papers, please. And so, and other than that, you know, scientists, some of them, they don't really care about origin of life. They're just worried about their own research. And there's just not many of them who are interested in the questions of how we got here, like me, that are willing to come on here and explain our current knowledge on the science. So I think it's very important for the public to know the truth, which is that we don't have these things figured out. And maybe you can start thinking for yourself and stop believing that just the scientists have all the answers. So it's very important. We need more people advocating for this, because I believe, you know, the public is being misled on what we actually, where we are scientifically, and the huge problems, and particularly with the origin of life.
awesome. Okay. Well, I will put the link in the chat. If you want to jump in, you are welcome. You will have to show your face before you come on the stream. I have to see your face backstage before I let you on. So you don't have to be on camera on, you know, on the stream, but you do have to at least show me your face so I can see who you are. Okay. So here's the link. And you guys are welcome. So let me see if I can pin that. Okay. Pin that comment. All right, so far, okay. Okay, we got Jason Torn is joining. All right, this is exciting. Hi, Jason.
What's up, guys?
We have Nestlig. Hi.
How are you? How are you both doing today?
Okay.
Good.
Great.
I looks like Lucifer as his profile picture.
So what do you guys?
Lucifer? It's a Star Wars character.
I thought they had to show their face.
Yeah. Well,
I know him.
Not on stream,
him.
right?
I know
not
him.
on stream.
Yeah, not on stream.
Okay. Can I follow up with my post that Rebecca was so nice to put on the bottom of the screen? So just to start off with, and a lot of people were mentioning this in the chat, and I'm just, again, I'm being very respectful. We're having an intellectual discussion. We're not attacking anybody whatsoever. That, I mean, I would refute what you were saying is that we do not have reasonable hypotheses. We do have reasonable hypotheses for abiogenesis. They're not 100%. We know
What's
that
reasonable hypotheses.
A reasonable hypothesis in terms of life forming from biochemical processes.
What is the hypothesis?
The abiogenesis hypothesis. We have multiple. There are multiple. Just wait a second. Would you agree that there are You're saying that of all the scientific papers in your area, there are no hypotheses whatsoever for
No,
abiogenesis.
Jason, I don't think she's asking what a good. How do you define a good hypothesis? How do you define that?
Or even if you were to say it's a hypothesis that is questionable, okay, that some people say that, but nobody is saying that there are no hypotheses for suggesting
No working
how
hypotheses. No working
well,
ones
what's a working hypothesis?
that can actually be plausible.
Wait a minute. No, a working hypothesis is one that can be replicated and testable in the actual environment.
Definitely not there.
Fair enough. But wait a second. What you're saying is that there are no reasonable, because I'm going to get to my second point.
Yep.
You're saying that if we looked at the massive literature, there are no hypotheses for abiogenesis.
I am saying yes.
Okay, that's just wrong. I can find papers.
That's not wrong, because
absolutely that's wrong.
Okay.
But let's okay. Wait a second. This is a disputed point that can be clarified by looking at a literature search. Okay, that's point one. But I don't concede this point. But let's just say there are no hypotheses. Let's just say that. Okay, that's not evidence for a God. That's not, just because you say that we haven't found a hypothesis, which I don't agree with, that supports an abiogenesis position. That's not evidence for God. That just means we haven't found or discovered a hypothesis that supports explaining the situation. It's not evidence for God.
Okay, sorry, you can calm down.
Go ahead. No, I'm calm. I'm just animated. So go for it.
So origin of life scientists themselves have said that there is a bunch of arguments within their own little community, because there is serious problems with every theory. They can't even come to a consensus on any of them.
Not evidence for God.
Okay, well, if life couldn't have formed naturally based on science,
that's not what they're saying. That's not what they're saying.
Yes, it is.
Wait a minute. No, that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is that they have conflicting hypotheses on the naturalistic processes.
All of the hypotheses have serious problems.
Fine. That's totally fine.
This
is how science works. It doesn't mean
that I would even make
God exists.
There's no work.
I would even make this. I would even make this strong point that even if we know, or even if there is no possible natural explanation, that does not follow the conclusion that there must be a God behind it. Even then.
Well, science can't answer it. So then, how do you think it happened?
That's not evidence.
That's still a fallacious argument.
Taylor, can I ask you a question?
Wait, guys, I kind of made a mistake here. Hold up, guys. I made a mistake here because I didn't see that Taylor put in the private chat, let's do one person at a time.
Yeah.
And so I kind of let you all on, and like everyone's going boom, 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 boom.
Right. So, maybe we're just the Trinity in one person in three different
the unholy Trinity
videos.
I want to let's first keep Jason on here. I want to keep talking to Jason.
Okay, so guys,
I'll just
we will get to everyone else. Yeah, but let's let Jason have his. Let's get a fight. Let's have a few back and forths, and then we'll.
I agree.
The one aspect that we were saying is there's one facet, which is, are there actual existing hypotheses that provide reasonable explanations or support for abiogenesis? Your position is there are none.
They have serious problems, and therefore they're not working. It's not a hypothesis if there are scientific impossibilities that it could happen.
So what you're saying is,
so whenever we have a hypothesis in science and we say, whoa, there's a serious problem with this hypothesis scientifically, we debunk the hypothesis. Okay. So there's none.
So wait a second. So what you're saying is that if I were to go to the literature right now, there are no workable hypotheses in any papers.
Yes, you're completely correct. There's no working hypothesis.
Okay, I just think that's wrong, and I think I can refute that, and I can bring up some papers to support that.
I will bring up the symposium of the origin of life scientists who all got together. They still don't have a hypothesis.
Wait a minute. Working hypotheses aren't necessarily completely validated, meaning that we can prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. They're working hypotheses.
No, they have serious problems scientifically.
But wait,
So,
wait,
for
Can
example,
I
RNA
interject something here?
wait,
Can I?
Rebecca, can't you just let me, like, it's only 2 more
okay, all
minutes.
right.
Let us
what's
talk
your
about
is,
this issue.
do you think RNA world metabolism first? What is your hypothesis?
Oh,
Because
well,
I'll tell you why it doesn't work.
well, wait a second. I'm just talking about what the scientific
Pick one.
consensus
Pick
discusses.
one. They said in their paper that we cannot come to a consensus.
Wait a minute,
The
but
original
I'm,
science
How does that
researchers
point to a
themselves-
God?
so you're, but your point is here that you're saying that one, but which I don't concur with, that you say that there are no working hypotheses for abiogenesis.
What's the hypothesis? Name one. What's your working one?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying that I don't know
Figure it
what
out
good.
and come back and talk.
Well, wait a second. Wait. That doesn't refute the position that I'm making. You're trying to make a claim that in the literature there is
Name a
no
hypothesis.
Well, look, if you want me to pull up some papers, I can do that, and we can debate.
Okay.
That.
And,
All right, I will. But
Jason,
just let me. This is the last
I
thing
have a
I'll say.
question that
This
will
is the
just
last-
get
wait,
past
this
this.
is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll be quiet. Okay. The last thing I'm going to say is, secondly, that even if you, which you're not correct, even if you are
You're not
correct.
You're
Well, wait a second. But first of all, you're not actually a cell biologist. You're just a student at this point. There are many.
I have a degree.
You have a PhD.
No, I don't have a PhD. I'm working on my PhD, but I have a,
Okay,
I have a
well,
biology degree.
Okay,
I have a degree in biology, and I'm teaching and researching it. Whatever you.
Okay,
You put cell biologist. I never.
Jason, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Jason.
And what do you have? What do you have, sir?
I have a PhD. I have a PhD
Okay,
in
in what?
climatology. I
Ah,
have a PhD in climatology and data science, and I
That
work at
has
the University of
nothing to do with
Idaho.
biology.
Well, but
let's not
I
quibble over
actually have a-
credentials,
I actually have
please.
a-
Now he's attacking me personally
No,
because
I'm not
he knows that
attacking
I'm
you
right.
personally. I'm attacking your
That's a weak
credentials.
argument, sir.
Well, it's not a weak argument because you're making claims.
Jason,
making
don't
claims
quibble
that aren't
over
supported by the scientific
credentials.
community. Okay, my last
Don't
thing.
quibble over
Just
credentials.
Just let me say the last thing, and I'll be quiet. My last thing is, even if you were to say, and somebody could make the argument, which I don't think is the case, that there are no working hypotheses for abiogenesis, which is just not the case. But if
They
you,
say it themselves.
well, they say there are no working hypotheses for abiogenesis.
Yes, in the
I don't-
original
I
life
don't-
convention,
I
we have
don't-
said that we
I don't
cannot come
believe
to a
that.
conclusion on
That's
the
not
hypothesis.
proof of God. That's not proof of God. Just
Okay,
an
well, and how did life get here?
unexplained phenomena are not proof of God. There are many things throughout
Well, you can
history
believe that
we
if
have
you
not
want.
had scientific evidence for, that not evidence for God. We may just
Not
not have
things
had
like life coming about. You know, that's a little bit
that,
different.
you know what? That
How did
totally
the
doesn't
universe
make any
get here? How
sense.
did life get here?
Jason,
Just because we don't have
Wait,
we don't
guys.
have proof of that's not evidence of God.
Okay,
That's
listen,
the
guys.
fact.
The other people, I'm going to temporarily remove you from the stream. I will put you back on one at a time, okay? Because it's getting too confusing with people interrupting. So, but there is something that I wanted to read, okay? Because this is from a book. It's only a few years old. This is 35 Origin of Life researchers contributed to this book, okay? And this is the you know, in the first part of it, the introduction, it says, if we envisage the route from mundane chemistry to life and onward to mind as a trajectory in some enormous state space, then not every trajectory is consistent with the known laws of physics. In fact, it may well be that almost all trajectories are inconsistent with the known laws of physics. So this is an admission. This is, if there are 35 Origin of Life researchers had an answer that was consistent with the laws of physics for how life could arise, I'm certain that they wouldn't want to admit that in the introduction to their book, right? So Jason, you're welcome to pull up your things, but you guys you're just arguing back and forth, but you're not bringing the evidence. So I'll let you state one more thing, but
that's fine. I made my point, and I'm just looking at a list of papers on abiogenesis that propose abiogenesis hypotheses. That now Tayler may say I disagree with those hypotheses, but to say that there aren't any reasonable hypotheses, I think is not being intellectually honest.
They can't come together on a consensus of the original life researchers cannot come together for a consensus because they'll say, oh, well, your hypothesis is impossible because of this. And they say, well, yours is impossible because this. So now they have no, so
that's how science works.
They cannot even.
That's how science works.
There are impossibilities.
But wait, they're not impossibilities. They're just competing. They are competing hypotheses.
No,
that just because people have competing hypotheses doesn't make it impossible. So there are papers out there.
So come and tell me your hypothesis, or what is the hypothesis that's consensus? Please come and tell me, because I know that there isn't one. based on their meeting. But tell me your hypothesis.
Okay. I don't have a hypothesis. I'm
Then
talking
get
about
off
the
of here.
science.
Like, what are you doing?
Wait a minute. So you're just going to so are you dismissing the body of literature on this topic?
No, the body. If you actually go and read the body of literature and learn about biology, you'll understand what I'm talking about.
Okay, so I'm looking at nucleation of semantic information of prebiotic matter. I'm looking at
what is that?
Analysis of inherent context-dependent and genetic information suggests that there
are evolutionary genetic information if we don't have DNA yet.
Look, this is a paper in microbiology. So have you so that doesn't matter.
We haven't got to microbiology. Microbiology is like bacteria. We haven't got there. We haven't even got to
you're refuting the whole body of literature on abiogenesis.
You gave me 2 papers that have nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Well, wait a second. I've got a list of papers here that suggest proposed hypotheses.
Both of those have nothing to do with original life.
Well, how do you know? You haven't even looked at the papers.
You're telling me what they're about. We don't have genetics without a living cell. Are you crazy?
Wait a minute. All right. I'm going to post the link from academia, edu, the list of papers, and you can look at them at your leisure. You don't have to look at them now. This is
no problem looking at them. I've looked at a lot of them.
That's fine. I mean, obviously, you think that you have these conclusions on this topic that seem to go against what the majority.
No, I'm concluding what they have concluded, that they said that we need to change route. We need to do something else because we cannot figure this out here. And they're saying that we're at a crossroads. The abiogenesis scientists say we're at a crossroads right now.
So you think it's supernatural. So you think these scientists are going to say, "Look, we don't have an answer for this. Therefore, it's supernatural."
No, I'm concluding that it's supernatural because there's no.
What evidence do you have it's supernatural?
Huh?
What evidence do you have that it's supernatural?
Because if it couldn't have happened naturally, then it's supernatural.
So this is like Doyle's fallacy. It's like Sherlock Holmes. If I can eliminate all the possibilities, that which remains must be true. That's a complete fallacy because it could be that you just don't know about some of those hypotheses. Just because you say, I can't explain something.
Why do you say things that God doesn't exist?
Taylor, listen to what I'm saying.
Because yours is a fallacy too.
Taylor, listen to what I'm saying. Just because you don't have an explanation for something isn't proof for God.
Yeah, maybe the aliens did it.
Maybe the aliens did do it.
Yeah, who made the aliens?
Wait a minute. Listen to what you're saying. You're proposing that a disembodied mind, of which we have no evidence for, did it, but then you're joshing and joking about possible aliens did it. Aliens could actually be possible. They actually are in our physical world.
You need to prove to me that God doesn't exist, but you can't do that either, sir.
You have the positive claim. You're the one making a claim.
No, you're saying God does not. You're not agnostic.
No,
you're atheist, right?
No, I'm saying that.
Are you agnostic or atheist?
I'm saying that I don't have any sufficient.
Are you agnostic or atheist?
I don't listen to what I'm saying. You could call it what you want, but listen to my position. I'm saying that I don't see sufficient evidence that would suggest.
You won't bring me a hypothesis. You won't say what you believe. So
I'm telling you right now, you won't listen to what I'm saying.
Bring me a hypothesis. We'll talk about it.
You won't listen to it. Hey man, if you can't handle the argument, I'm sorry. You can't have the discussion. I understand.
It seems like you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, listen.
Let's have a real debate once you bring
it. That's an ad hominem. You're not actually attacking the argument. You're attacking.
Your papers that you brought up had nothing to do with the topic. That's how I know.
Did you look at the papers? Well, you didn't look at the papers.
Me the title. It's enough. Sir,
you didn't look at the papers, so you don't know anything about it because you didn't look at the papers. But they don't have anything.
I don't want to embarrass you.
All right, we're going on in circles.
Why don't you embarrass
now?
me? I'm here.
I just told you those papers have nothing to do with the topic.
But you didn't look at the papers.
You told me the name, and that's already.
How do you know? You haven't. This is the whole point. You're just making these conclusions, and you actually haven't even explored any of these.
Jason, I do feel like we're going in circles now, so I'm going to let the next person on. Thank you so much for being here.
Too bad you couldn't handle it, Taylor. Yeah, have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Okay, I don't remember who joined us. I think it was Neslig, so I'm going to put him on. Okay, there we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Are you Lucifer?
No, just a character I molded after Star Wars. It's nothing, so.
Okay.
Also, I don't know where you want to, whether you want to begin with me on. Let's start with the beginning. You made the argument that if. Oh, hold on.
Sorry. Should I let? Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
You made the argument. You made the argument that if we don't have an explanation for abiogenesis, then the conclusion that it must be God follows, right? That's one of your arguments, basically.
That's what I've concluded.
Okay.
That's what I've concluded.
But the point is that the argument as a that argument is logically fallacious. That's the point of it.
Okay, are
Did you
we debating philosophy? I'm not like a big philosophy expert, I have to admit. Like, I'm not like, oh, fallacy this, fallacy that. I'm like scientific evidence.
All right.
So people who know the most act like they know the most, and that's what I've seen a lot today. I need to think of the name of that. I'm gonna look it up because I can bring up some other fallacies, but I'm not a philosopher. So.
Nestle, do you think that we can sometimes rule out explanations through science? Can we rule things out?
You can rule out, but if you rule out one explanation, that does not automatically mean you can jump to another explanation. That's it. That's the point of it. Yeah, but you can't. Logically, you can't.
Okay, well, you believe in. I guess science is your religion. Well, your religion does not answer the questions of life. The biggest questions.
I don't proclaim that science is my religion. I also don't proclaim that I have the answer to everything. Okay. Sorry?
I said, well, I'm spouting my beliefs. I would like to hear about yours. What is your answer? If we don't have a scientific explanation, then what do you think happened?
Oh, about what? About abiogenesis?
About how did life begin? Yeah.
All right. So I've of course I'm not an expert in this, but I've read some interesting books, and I think my suspicion is I think the most likely explanation is the hydrothermal vent theory proposed by Michael Russell and also a few others.
Right. Well, then RNA world hypothesis, which is some say is the current consensus, couldn't have happened.
Yeah, I don't.
That's not a theory either. That's not an actual theory. Hydrothermal vent isn't like a theory. It's usually RNA.
No, it proposes that the life starts in a hydrothermal vent. That's
so
hence the name.
RNA, DNA, proteins.
Well, RNA likely came before DNA.
Okay, well,
because
then you need to dismiss your hydrothermal vent because then it couldn't have happened in water, as I mentioned earlier. No, in
a hydrothermal system, actually, polymerization is more likely to occur because of the thermodynamics involved. Although the details are still lost on me because I cannot remember every single detail of what I read before. But still.
Well, that's just a wrong statement.
Sorry.
I thought he was. Oh my goodness, I hope he's okay. Anyway.
Bring some else in. I'll be back.
Okay. Be careful. All right.
Hey Tayler. Hey Rebecca.
Hello. Hey Travis, 1 minute. Tayler, how many more people after Travis do you want to come on? We can cut it off at Travis if you want, because
if there's anybody in particular that wants to talk about science, I'd like to have a discussion about that.
Okay, good.
But it doesn't matter. It's up to you.
Okay, so if anybody else, if you want to have a discussion about science with Tayler, then you can come in. I will put the link again. But, don't come in and question her about philosophy because that's not her area of study. So thank you.
Yeah, hey, so I'm not actually an atheist. I'm a disciple of Myron. So it's like a very niche religion, so you probably don't know about it, but yeah, I was really curious listening to you, and so it seemed like you didn't understand where life came from, and that was like a really important question that you wanted to understand, right? And you feel like when science says they don't have an answer and you really want that answer, that like if science says they don't know, then like is there a better tool than science to figure out what we could know?
That's a good question. Better tool than science.
Like you're a scientist, right?
Right,
like you're studying science. Like I expect you to do science, prepare, make a hypothesis, figure out how to falsify it.
Right. So naturally, in answering my questions, I went to science, and then learning about what would have needed to occur for life to begin, and knowing about biology and how the cell works, and you know,
It's so
scientists
complicated.
agree that this could not have happened naturally. So I'm like, wow, like this could not have happened naturally. So then what happened? And so my conclusion was that there had to be some type of divine intervention, which I call
Mhm.
God.
Okay.
And that's how I got there.
Now, when you made that determination, did that have any connection to Christianity, or is it just kind of like a divine higher power?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just started believing in some type of God. And then
Okay.
yeah.
You like did the research and like
Yeah.
picked.
Figured out that God
Did you go through other religions, or did you just kind of settle on Christianity first, or because I mean like many religions have like an explanation for the
I think
origin of
believing in
life.
God is a big first step.
Okay,
So
yeah,
do you
but
believe in God?
yeah, Myron.
Okay. Well, then maybe we
But
can have another talk another day about which God is the correct God.
right. Yeah, I mean, you said a lot that like what did you say? Tell me, or like you're talking about impossibilities, right? Like all this stuff is like impossible, but like how do we know that like like an unembodied mind is possible? Or like how do we know things like the resurrection is possible? Like all of
Right.
science tells us that's not possible, right? And then we say, well, we know it's not possible, but because we believe it happened, it's a miracle. And it just
Right.
seems
So
like
things are already like honestly reality. Like there's a saying like reality's stranger than fiction. And so you know, things are crazy. Like we showed a video of Inside the Cell earlier. I mean, the fact that that's just made of atoms and they're like, you know, that is crazy
yeah,
in itself.
I
How did the Big Bang happen? That's crazy, you know?
right.
Um,
Do you
and
think
that's
it
a whole
could
other
have been
topic.
natural? Do you think
Well, yeah.
like
Okay, so could it have been natural?
is that like a little bit of possibility?
Right. So are you talking about for the origin of life or the Big Bang?
Just like the Big Bang, just kind of like I don't know, right? Like the
Right.
scientists say like
So
13
the
billion
Big
years
Bang, there
ago
had to be
and
a
etc.
beginning so there had to be a Big Bang because we see the background radiation from it. So we
Okay.
know that the universe had to have a beginning. So, well, what created this bang that created everything from nothing? That's a big question. So then they started looking into the universe, like a Big Bang cycle. But with the latest research, we found out that the big crunch that it come back together is most likely not what is occurring. So then again, it says then it goes back to what started the Big Bang, and so if it had a beginning, and you know things cannot come from nothing. Scientists will agree this. Yes, things cannot come from nothing.
Yeah.
There is a quantum tunneling theory, which is that would have required another universe to through quantum tunneling create in somewhere that had space time already, and then a previous universe quantum tunnel, and then that could be a proposed mechanism. But what is that other like universe that tunneled energy to our universe to start the Big
Like
Bang?
a super
I
universe.
I think it's like God who did it. But I mean, and there's other, and then so they came up with the multiverse theory, which is a whole other topic in itself, saying that basically universes are just constantly being created. And I've heard scientists like refute this theory as well. But even in terms of the Big Bang, like, so there had to be a beginning at some point, whether it's multiverse or whatever. There had to be some sort of beginning. And so like we still don't have these questions answered. And the multiverse was like a last hope string of hope from physicists, because we just don't know how it happened. And you know, then you got to open your mind to different possibilities. If scientists don't know, I mean, if you think about it, you know, the Big Bang, if you really think about it, that's crazy. So
But remember what you said before, like that scientists, like when I asked you like what's a better tool than science,
right.
like now, like let's say like we don't know something, right? And it's gonna take us 500 years until we know it. And
Well,
all that time until we know it, we're making up many hypotheses.
we're getting
Some of
further
them are
away from the
natural,
answer.
some of them are supernatural, right? Like there are 5,000 religions out there, and they have supernatural explanations for the creation of the world. You know, like the creations of the animals and the plants and they're usually based on like the local fauna that they had available that they knew about, right? So it's like very like like to that like geographical spot. But like to me, like if I, as a disciple of Myron, said that like Myron created the universe, but he did it by he scrunched up the last universe and used all the black holes and combined everything together, and it shrank down into one little point, and then at that point it combusted, and this is all a natural process that Myron created. But he
Myron,
was
your
from
God?
this but he was from the super universe, and he used these black holes in his old universe because he realized it was like immoral, and it was kind of decaying rapidly. So he decided to just start over from new. But like, all I'm saying is like, could you refute that idea in
That
any way?
Myron? So if you believe
Yeah.
that a God did it, then I can't refute your God. No. I can't
Oh,
refute-
interesting.
I
So
can't
you
refute
can't refute any other supernatural explanation.
if that's your God and you believe that he did it,
Like,
then I'll
let's
be happy.
say I believe that Myron created the myth of Jesus in order to bring people
Okay, well,
to be
that's a
hopeful
religious
about
topic.
life.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
that's more
it's just like, it's like hypothetical.
right. And so, yeah, that's like a, which God is right, the right God again. But if you
Right,
believe
right.
if you believe that there, if you know there must have been a God that created this, then I would
Well,
not.
we don't know that. We have faith in it, right?
Well, we don't know how it happened, so I
Now,
have come to the conclusion that it had to be God because based on
do you
all
have
scientific
a hypothesis for
yeah.
how he did that though?
What, Travis, I want to cut this off here because there's 4 other people waiting to come on. So
Okay.
let's just leave that one. And if somebody else wants to ask her that question, then
we can debate God, and we should debate God in another.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're talking. We're trying to stick on the scientific topics, guys. So please come with scientific questions.
Okay, I did post this paper.
Okay.
Of the
And,
origin of life. Yeah, in the did I post in the private chat? Okay, let me try to post it in the. Can I? No, I can't even comment.
I can put it there. I can put it there for you. But also, Nestle wanted to know about which symposium. She asked you to.
Yes, that's what I just was talking about.
Oh, okay. This is the link to the symposium. Okay, he's got it then. I will put it on the chat, and absolutely. I will let Nathan on. Hi, Nathan.
Hi. I am so incredibly sunburnt from today. This is the first time I saw myself on the camera when it came on, and I'm like, wow, that's going to be crazy tomorrow. But yeah, there we go. Hey, Tayler. So I guess my first question for you would be, would you say that the kind of like disputed claim here is that God created and designed human biology or human DNA or something like that?
The disputed claim?
Yeah, like as in the claim that people are calling in to sort of like dispute with you or that they disagree with you over.
Oh yeah, that's what they're disagreeing with. Yeah.
And how confident would you say that you are in that claim? Like from sort of like 0 to 100, if you were to put yourself on a scale, would you say you're like 80, 90%
claim that God must have created it?
Yeah.
I'm 100% confident.
100% confident.
100%.
Okay. So is there any kind of evidence that you can think of that would reduce your confidence, maybe knock it down from 100 to like 99%?
If the scientists can give an explanation.
Is there any evidence that would make your confidence go up? Because 100 sounds quite sort of high to me. Do you think if you, I don't know, if you had direct revelation from God through your sensus divinitatis or something, I don't know, Jesus communicated to you in a dream or something and told you how he did, would that like sort of increase your confidence in it?
Like I said, my confidence is 100%.
Okay, but is there any kind of evidence that could increase your confidence possibly?
I don't need any more evidence. But I mean, if you're saying if I visually like see God or something, I mean, I already believe he exists.
In terms of understanding, like the proposed explanation at the minute, do you sort of have any idea of what it was exactly that God did to create humans and biology? Like, what sort of is the explanation, I suppose?
Well, he must have created so there had to be multiple components of the cell come together at one time. And they must have been compartmentalized, because whenever you get all of the required components for a cell, then they start degrading one another. So he must have compartmentalized the cell, and he must have created the DNA in the genetic code. And that's another point, that codes don't usually create themselves like computer codes. So how did the DNA code get here? So I believe that God created the DNA code, our genetic code, and he must have compartmentalized the cell and made the Golgi apparatus at the same time. And so that's how I believe he did it. He just put the different components of the cell together at the same time, because it had to be done at the same time.
Would it be possible, on your view, for God to create like a single-celled organism of some kind, and for that to evolve into humans, or is that not a possibility according to you?
That's a possibility.
So the big difference then, it seems to me, is how you get any kind of life form in the first place, right? So it's not that
That's
like
what
it's
we're
not natural.
today, just like the first life form.
Okay. Do you think if God sort of somehow told you the exact mechanism that he used, you to be even more confident in the explanation? You know, if he told you, you know, I made these organelles and put them together in this exact type of organism, and you know, here's the base sequences I used or something. Would you be like, oh wow, that's really cool? Like now,
that's really cool.
Even more convinced.
If you watched the video earlier, it's amazing.
So I'm wondering then, why is it that you sort of think, so someone who says the natural universe has a mysterious disposition to produce these kind of cells, right? Why would you reject?
Doesn't produce these kinds of cells.
But I'm saying, if someone proposes that as an explanation and says,
if they had a working hypothesis and a working way of how a cell could have came from scratch. But
if we compare this to the explanation that you offered, you know, the theistic hypothesis, which was, so God created, you know, the organelles that are necessary, or the organelles that are sufficient, including the Golgi apparatus and a few other organelles at the same time in some kind of organism, right? And we compare that to another explanation which says, well, this natural disposition of the universe produced the Golgi apparatus and a few of the other organelles at the same time. Wouldn't you say we've just got an explanation that's on par then? They're both as informative as one another. They're both as empirically testable as one another. That's basically...
That's not the case right now.
Can't I just stipulate it, though, as an explanation? So
you're speculating that like this isn't reality, you know, like science doesn't have an explanation. And actually, the more that we learn, the more we're astonished. But so you're saying if there was a working scientific hypothesis about how life got created?
I'm saying I think I can just kind of stipulate it as an explanation. I can say, I'm going to just this is my explanation. The natural universe has a mysterious disposition to produce these sort of cells, right? And that's all there is to the explanation.
The universe is intelligent?
I'm not quite sure what's meant by that question. You know, like,
do you believe that our universe is intelligent? Like, to have created a cell, which is astonishingly complex. Like, a cell is very complex. Do you believe that if the universe naturally created it, that we have an intelligent universe?
That it would make the universe intelligent? I don't think that. No. I would say on this hypothesis that it would be kind of like you know, blind natural causes, as it were. There wouldn't be any kind of intentional.
Well, that's even more unlikely than God doing it.
But what I'm stipulating it, though, in the explanation here, and then what I'm saying is what we can do is we can compare these explanations. So if I say the universe has this mysterious natural disposition to do it, and I you know, I'm clear that it's mysterious, and then we compare that to the kind of proposed theistic explanation, I think they're both basically kind of equal, but maybe the mysterious natural.
Yeah, keep going.
But I say maybe the mysterious natural one can win out, because it only commits us to the kind of entities that we're both already committed to. So it's more parsimonious in that sense. So they're both sufficient to explain it. They're both as informative as one another.
What is this mysteriousness in the universe?
Well, I could ask the same of the theistic hypothesis, right?
I can
And
answer.
so
and
if it's
let's wrap it up. Let's let this be the last exchange because there's other people waiting. Okay.
so if I say, for example, what would you accept from me then as like an answer to what this mysteriousness is? Do you mean like what substance is it, or what like
Yeah, what is it?
it's the universe. It's just like a part of natural reality.
Okay. So what's your concluding statement?
It would just be that even though this is like clearly a really bad explanation, I think that it's actually equally as informative as the proposed theistic explanation here. So I think any question that can be put to this explanation can be put to the theistic explanation, and the theistic explanation equally doesn't really have like an answer there. You know, it's just going to kind of.
We do have an answer, but look, like you're proposing something that doesn't exist. Like you're proposing if we do have an explanation scientifically, you know, are you saying this mysterious universe, but you're not like telling me what the mysteriousness is. Some might call it God, but no, we're not there scientifically to be able to even debate whether it was God or or by natural causes, or this mystery, you know, that you're alluding to.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on anyway.
Yeah,
sorry. Thanks for letting me go
Nathan.
over, Rebecca.
Okay.
Cheers.
Yep. Bye. See you. Okay. Hey, James.
Hello, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So I just want to remind any skeptics, atheists, etc., that are watching this, for the same reasons that Christians like remind each other, let's try to behave, let's try to like represent our school of thought as best as we can, so we don't come across as hateful and antagonistic. I'd like to remind my fellow skeptics that we should really consider trying to be as non-combative as possible when we discuss these issues, no matter why we care, no matter how much we care. It's important in order for civil dialogue to progress.
Awesome. Hey, James, I just wanted to let everyone know I'm going to start limiting to 3 questions so we can hear from everybody who's waiting. So like, you know, just wanted to kind of like put a cap on it. That way everybody can have a shot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I hope absolutely. I hope people are even respectful to atheists on here. Like we should not be attacking each other. We should be promoting dialogue like this to try to figure out the truth of reality.
Right. Right, exactly. So my first thought is that I'm remembering before we had germ theory, and nobody understood what the common or the real causes of disease was. And so supernatural explanations were pretty much the best available explanation. You know, we don't know. Science doesn't have an answer, therefore God or demons or the spirit world or something along those lines. And this seems to me like it's a repeat of that same thing, where once again we're at a precipice. Once again we're like looking for an explanation. We don't have one. Scientists can't agree on how it happened, and so people are saying, well, we don't know, therefore God. And it seems like we were going to learn lessons from history to say, you know what, every time like we found a scientific explanation for something, it has replaced the, well, we don't know but God, so then therefore God did it. And so if this is finally an opportunity for the theists to win one, it would be the first one. It would be the first time where scientists eventually admit that it's not possible for a physical explanation, therefore God. Because that, so far, scientists, like science, 1 year after the next, they just knock another one off the table. We always thought we couldn't come up with an explanation. Now we know. And it just seems like this is another one of those times. Now, I'm not saying for sure that it's going to go one way or the other. And I understand that scientists don't have agreement between each other about how exactly it happened. There's a general consensus that it happened by natural processes, but they can't agree on what those natural processes were. I think if history holds as a pattern, we're going to see them eventually conclude that it was this or that natural process. Now, it occurs to me that when I look at what Bibles say about God did this and God did that, he tends to rely, per the narrative, on natural processes, like actual water to create a flood, actual boat building to create an ark, always relying on natural processes. So it seems like if scientists eventually figure out exactly how life began and they come up with a completely physical explanation, that won't disprove God, because God could have used a physical process. So I feel like Christians maybe could afford to be not super dogmatic about the issue. They could just say, you know what, maybe it was 100% physical processes, but maybe that's how my God arranged it. Therefore, you're not really losing any ground to concede that it's at least possible.
Right. I understand that that's a big, that's a very important idea. And I definitely consider it. But and I'm so pertinent on this because it's not physically possible. So with the germ thing, you can, if anybody wants to come and tell me how it happened, that would be wonderful. But
Sure.
so listen, with the germ theory, we like in this time we're learning more and more about science and saying, okay, well, germs is an explanation for this, or this is an explanation for that, or we're learning stuff. But now we've come to a point where the more we learn, the more we realize it's impossible. So time is not like on our side with this one. That's why it's so unique, and that's why I will bet my bottom dollar that we will not have a physical explanation for it. And just by learning about biology itself, can you only understand this concept? So I will stick by. I know that it wouldn't refute God if we did find a physical explanation, but I know that we will not, because of all the different, just for multiple reasons. Because if we had the condition for RNA, then we couldn't have had the condition for lipids, and if we had that one, then that it's just like impossibilities.
Sure. So with that in mind, I did notice that there are a couple of articles in Nature where all 5 building blocks of DNA and RNA have now been found in meteorites.
What's the 5 building blocks?
All 5 building blocks. So I'm not a scientist. All I know
what
is
building blocks are you talking about? All 5? There's not even I don't know what you mean. All 5. Are you talking about amino acids, nucleotides?
So here's the thing. Again, I am not a
think
scientist.
they found methane, which is like
all I know is what Nature says. So what I'll do in the comment section after the video is I will link these in a comment, and then if you ever get a chance to come back on or maybe respond to the comments, you could address what's in the articles.
I wonder
how
what
it factors in.
Yeah. And look, even if we did find a nucleotide, that is like that doesn't even scratch the surface of the beginning of the question. So I just like to pull up, if you could pull up that video again of how RNA is made. That this is how RNA is made, and we just please look at how RNA is made and tell me how this could have happened.
Sure. Hey, I completely get what you're saying. What you're saying sounds reasonable.
So that happened with no intervention at all right there. Yep. It's pure dust.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know of any examples of something that's been proven to be irreducibly complex.
There's your RNA being created right there.
All right. So I'm not a scientist. I'm not equipped to argue that point, but I do want to ask just one last question. You can go to the next person after this. It seems like if it's Bible God or really any God, assume for a moment that there's a God. It's easy enough for you because you already believe that. They seem to have gone out of their way to hide, like to withhold good, strong, objective evidence of their existence and their involvement. And I've heard a lot of Christians tell me the reason for that is because he wants us to come to him by faith instead. And if he gave us strong enough, objective, substantial evidence to really point to him, and specifically him or the idea of a God, and put us on his trail, then we would be kind of denied the opportunity to come to him by faith instead. So it seems like if he's finally allowed us to figure this out scientifically, to say, haha, there has to be a God, then it seems like he's kind of changed his mind about his strategy and how he relates to humanity. And that kind of throws me off a little bit. I
think it's funny how he's letting humans figure out, like lately in science and in terms of like this topic and stuff, it's funny just letting them try to figure it out, because it's like we are figuring out that there must have been a God. And there's other scientists who are like me who have looked into this and said, well, there had to be divine intervention because there's, the impossibilities.
Sure, I understand. As I understand it,
it's just kind of funny, I agree. Like lately, it's been hard for scientists to keep going, and they're kind of ashamed of the lack of progress that they've made.
Sure, I'm sure it's frustrating that they're not making as much progress as they thought they would by now.
They're like going in reverse.
So with that being the case, if this ends up turning a lot more people to Christianity because they're like, "Ha, wow, look," then I guess I got to feel bad for all the people that were born before this era, where they didn't have access to these scientific epiphanies that would have led them to this ultimate truth and some kind of salvation. Because, man, that really screws them. Talk about bad timing, you
Right.
know.
And see, I'm trying to reach out to people who have a similar mindset as me, like a scientific mindset. Oh, there must be an explanation, or, you know, how did this happen? Or I want to understand like how we got here. And so I'm trying to reach out to people who are similar to me, who, you know, are very curious and have a scientific mindset, and just assure them, you know, like reassure them that scientists don't have all the answers. And that's a big misconception, that scientists have all the answers.
Well, sure. I don't know a whole lot of people that think science has all the answers, but
There
certainly there's a lot of people that overestimate what science has an answer for. I'll agree to that.
The biggest question science does not have an answer for.
Sure.
Like the creation of the universe and the creation of life.
Sure, it's pretty big
But
question.
people don't know that.
Yeah, and people on both sides tend to not be as informed as they think that they are. And that's a problem.
That's a fallacy. I'm going to look it up.
Sure.
Anyway.
So thank you very much.
Thanks for being here, James. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. All right.
Hey,
Pine Creek.
show these flag waving
Welcome.
phony atheists how to ask questions. My goodness,
Yeah.
they talk and talk. Question number
But
one.
wait.
What?
Did you see my video?
I loved it.
You did? Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I loved it. Well done. Question number one.
You go. I'm listening. I'm just
Okay.
going to go ahead.
Do you support taxpayer-funded research for abiogenesis?
Yes. Please keep researching it. It's just so hilarious.
Okay.
But they are kind of losing funding. But please, I would love for them to keep researching it. It's just so funny.
Very good. I agree. Question number two. Do you think a person can say in this area that's impossible for something to happen naturally and be mistaken?
Maybe if they're uninformed of the particular subject.
Okay. Question number three. How did you personally figure out what's possible and what's not in this area?
So I learned how RNA is created, and I learned how a cell works and what would have been needed for life. I learned how metabolism works, and the compartmentalization of the cell. And so after learning about how the cell operates, then I came to that conclusion.
Okay, those are my three questions, but I took way less time than all your other flag waving phone.
You're awesome.
Can I ask another one?
Oh, yeah, that was great. That was
Can I ask
great.
one more?
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
you can go ahead.
for it. Okay.
Question number four. You believe that a God or supernatural realm intervened. How many interventions do you think happened? Is it just to produce RNA or the first cell, and then naturalistic processes just kept going
That's such
after
a good
that?
question. Yeah,
And
right.
this isn't really a scientific question, though, is it? Because it's a
Not
this
really,
is
but
about
I
a
still like the
supernatural
question.
event.
I
Okay.
still like the question. I don't know. I mean, how us pondering God is like an ant pondering our minds, but I think God is always intervening. So, for example, dark energy and dark matter. Dark energy is what's responsible for the universe exponentially speeding up in expansion, and dark matter is responsible for gravity. These are basically fillers to fill in equations that we want to use, but we don't really understand what it is. It's basically just an equation filler, and we cannot, we don't know what dark matter is. I believe it's God holding the universe together, and I feel like he's always intervening. I think that the processes in our cell, if you watch the video, are that's like there's God in everybody and everything.
Okay. Last question. Are you a James Tour fan?
I've heard of him.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm going to tell y'all the truth. I came up with every one of my points on my own. I did not have a mentor. I didn't even know there was other people like me. But now that I find out there is, but no, I never, ever, like everything that I have, all the points that I've made and all my research, that was by my own means. I thought I was alone in the community of, believing that science suggests that there's a God. So only way later have I even heard about these people. But no, I think he's pretty cool.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thanks for answering them.
Hey, thanks for being here. Okay, and I just want to say, Bree, I'm sorry we didn't. I guess Bree had to leave. Bree was waiting to come on, but wasn't able to. But if you come back, I'll let you on. But now we have speed of sound. So we're keeping it at 3 questions. But Pine Creek cheated and got 5, but he did.
Right,
do
so
them
I get
quickly,
to have
so
4. Okay,
if they're quick, yes.
Okay,
go for it.
quick. Okay, first one, Taylor. I have been highly critical of you on my channel, but anyway, how old do you think the Earth is? Where are you?
I haven't done research into that.
What's that?
I haven't. I'm not like a geography. Like I don't know how old the Earth
Okay,
is.
but do you think it's millions of years old? Or
this is not my subject at all. I'm going
do
to admit my ignorance.
you think it's 6,000 years old?
I just told you I'm
She
admitting.
said she doesn't know.
Okay.
Let's go on to the next question.
Sorry.
Do you what part of evolution do you buy? Do you buy that Sarcopterygians basically spawned reptiles, like we went from fins to limbs? Do you believe in that part of evolution?
Evolution is not something I've studied because I was like a cell biology. There's also evolutionary biologists, but so I'm not going to speak on that because I haven't done that much evolutionary work naturally in my field of study. But I have heard about some irreducible complexity problems with evolution. Other than that, I have not much to say.
Okay.
I was mainly concerned with like how did life arise to begin with.
Yeah. So are you familiar with Bruce Damer and David Deamer and their experiments to take just nucleic acids and get them to polymerize up to 100 MERS in hot springs? Are you aware of that? Without
Without what?
Without a polymerase, no enzymes involved, just nucleic acids hooking up to each other in a pool of hot water, basically.
You said 100 of them? That never happens.
They had up to 100 of them.
That never happened. I've heard of maybe 2 of them coming together with unrealistic conditions. Like
you're saying that they cheated when they showed the graph when they
I'm saying that I've done a bunch of research and they have never got RNA to polymerize in 100 without any enzymes.
Okay, so you're saying the papers don't exist.
You can do it in a chemical lab, but you say a hot spring, like I actually would be very interested.
Yeah, they actually took the nucleotides and threw them into a hot spring, and then they collected the results, and then they went and they simulated hot springs in their laboratory, and they're still working on it. I've had Bruce.
I don't believe you. I'm sorry.
Will you please go look up Deamer?
Speed of sound. Can you just send the papers?
No, who's it? Deamer?
Deamer, Bruce Deamer. If you look up that much, and then the other one is Dahmer, Damer, I believe it is, or Damer, rather. He pronounces it Damer. I'm sorry, I can't say Dahmer.
He should have won a Nobel Prize.
Yeah. And anyway, look up the research. Okay, the last one was, are you aware of the papers? Well, not the last one, the second last one. I have a really short one after this. The papers on formaldehyde synthesis with meteor impacts that came out like at the Norcell conference last year, and other papers on. There have been numerous papers. I just downloaded 3 or 4 of them on formaldehyde being created with, and also the 5 nucleic acids. 5 nucleic acids have been found in meteorites. I linked the paper in the side chat. Yeah. So I mean, it seems like you're missing a lot of research.
I think you're missing a lot too. So I hope you understand the cell is 100 billion atoms working together, not 4. So even if we did have these nucleotides,
I study cell biology.
Polymerized. Then if we had an RNA, then it would disintegrate in the water. You said hot springs water? Oh, well, that RNA's gone, buddy.
RNA half-life, like mRNAs or polymeric RNAs.
You know that RNA undergoes hydrolysis and is very unstable?
It's
got your RNA. That's all you had. RNA and it's gone.
Are you over-talking me? Okay, it has a 48-hour half-life, and if you stabilize small RNAs with peptides, it's a lot longer.
There's no peptides on early Earth. Peptide is a protein. Where was that?
Small peptides? Okay,
Yeah,
not
that's hard to make.
proteins.
You have the DNA, then RNA, then protein. You're in a protein, man. That could have not been there on early Earth without.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Last question, I believe. What conference are you talking about in Tokyo?
I posted on the private chat.
Oh.
But I think somebody posted on the public.
Well, I don't think I can see the private chat before I join. Could you please repost
I put it in the regular chat, but I will post it right now.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Articles?
There you go.
Yeah, if you could put it in private chat for me.
Yep.
Anyway, you should stop by my channel sometime and we'll fight some more. But,
yeah, that would be. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Tayler did invite anybody to have a debate with her.
Can I ask him just one more question? Because he's the only person who's brought science up.
Yeah.
So suppose we have RNA, right? And then suppose by some means it does not disperse or hydrolyze and break up into nothing again.
Right.
So then what? Okay, we have RNA.
Okay.
We're being hypothetical, obviously.
Okay,
So
if you have
then what?
If you have small RNA polymers, they fold up, right? Okay, when they fold up, they have ends. Often have ends that there's the fold part of it and there's the end part of it. And those things are highly likely to attach an amino acid. Okay. When two of them attach an amino acid, they're highly likely to polymerize that amino acid, particularly if there's arginine involved. Okay. That's something that I'm currently working on. And so this happens. And then when they polymerize, if the temperature heats up or some other condition
changes. So you're assuming an RNA makes a protein, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll make random small peptides. And these random small peptides. I hope you know
that I've already refuted step 1. And this is why original life scientists do not agree with RNA first hypothesis.
Okay.
So now let's assume that we have RNA and some protein,
Right.
Okay, then what?
A peptide stabilized RNA.
Do we have right now? Do we have a cell membrane at this point, or
no
cell membrane? So they're going to be just floating around the water.
They'd be floating around, knocking into each other, basically recreating different versions of peptides, so that you have random peptides and recreating different versions of RNA.
So this RNA must be stable a long time. What'd you say the half-life was?
I think it's 48 hours. Yeah, well, it depends on the pH.
So in 48 hours,
basically RNA doesn't always break down.
Right. That's true.
pH it doesn't. Okay.
But do you know that the man working on the RNA hypothesis, RNA World, said that they could not be at a hydrothermal vent? He says, and it's in that paper right there, that it should stay in the bosoms of the ocean where it belongs. It was like a joke. He was like, the hydrothermal vent could not be with the RNA World hypothesis.
Bruce Deemer believes the same thing. That's why he picks these hot springs rather than hydrothermal vents. But now hydrothermal vents have gotten a new push from some new research that's just come up, and they're going back and forth on it. And the truth of the matter, I think it was both, and everything else in between. But
the RNA World hypothesis researchers wouldn't agree with you. They would say, well, it couldn't have been in water because RNA would have hydrolyzed.
RNA hypothesis has been dead for a while. The RNA world, basically.
So what is your hypothesis?
Peptide RNA world. So peptide
RNA world. I know, I've heard about that one.
Okay, I'm trying to find.
But supposedly we have these stable RNAs by some reason. So we got RNAs producing proteins, very hypothetically floating around in water. Then what happens next?
Yeah, that's where it gets a little sketchy, right? And that's where we're working it out. But at some point, the RNA starts creating a peptide that is more like the one that is stabilizing it, basically. And then we have like a loop.
How lucky is that? So do you believe that the RNA nucleotides how did the RNA nucleotides come together in the form to create this peptide? That's like a code for a peptide that stabilizes it. How'd that happen?
Okay, when RNAs fold, they frequently have loops at the bottom, and there are like 1 to 5 codons at the bottom, right? Or basically 1 to 5 nucleotides at the bottom, and they would lock into another RNA. And then if that RNA happened to be the same thing to create itself, basically, or to create the peptide that stabilized the RNA, then you have it's all network theory. Okay, what you're looking for You're looking for this 1 in a billion network, or 1 in a million, or whatever. We're not entirely sure. And that's some of the modeling that I'm doing in software right now to find that little solution to that problem, or to find that tendency.
But how did the RNA how did the nucleotides come together in the format of where it would be coding for a protein that's actually functional?
For a protein to be functional is not that difficult. Small peptides can be functional. Yes.
That's wrong, dude.
Okay, small peptides can.
What about did the proteins fold themselves, or?
Proteins do fold themselves naturally.
Oh yeah. I mean,
and proteins and magnesium.
So an RNA came together in such an intelligent sequence to create a protein that happened to fold itself and stabilize that RNA. That's a stretch. That's I mean, there's
the protein that stabilizes the RNA is not. It's not folded. It's a complex, the RNA peptide complex, right?
And what brought in these amino acids to connect? Because I showed in the video, you know, the RNA codes for amino acids for a protein. So without the tRNA, what was bringing in these amino acids that were hypothetically there?
So what you're talking about is the genesis of the genetic code. Basically, you're talking about the creation of the genetic code.
No, I'm asking, how did that RNA create a protein without an enzyme?
You understand that you're talking about the code, the codon code, basically the genetic code, right? Okay, so how that came to be is one of the things that is currently being researched statistically, how that code came to be. So we're looking for that self-replicating loop, okay, that goes around and creates some. So
I'm just curious, how did right. So I'm gonna give you such a benefit of doubt and say the RNA is creating proteins. How did DNA come about?
That is not my field. How DNA.
That's a big question for the first life that have DNA.
Well, okay, like anybody that works in abiogenesis, they're going to have microfields, right?
Yeah, and because they haven't even got to step one.
But if you press me on it, I would look into some possibilities and give you some ideas, some hypotheses.
Where does the lipid bilayer come from? And at what point is this going to be encapsulated?
Basically, fatty acids are pretty easy to create in vents, I believe, and they've shown this. And if you have fatty acids, you automatically will have a lipid bilayer, okay, that will encapsulate whatever's around. And now you've got a species, so every single cell is its own species. But I mean, you're asking about every step of abiogenesis.
I just real quick, I just want you to pull up that video again on the second clip of an RNA transcribing a protein.
Yeah, I know what a ribosome is, what it's doing.
Oh yeah, that was definitely happening.
Okay, did you know that okay, what is the active mechanism in that ribosome? What is the most active part of that ribosome? What is it made out of?
An enzyme.
It's made out of RNA.
Yeah.
Okay. That's where RNA peptide world comes from. Basically, it's made out of RNA. And it has a bunch of proteins around it. And if you look at prokaryotes,
so the amino acids were there along with the nucleotides, just all right there. You're saying they're all just floating around?
The all right there problem is the one that really vexes me, because concentration is really important in a lot of these theories.
Yeah, and that's unrealistic.
Cat in my
Okay, thanks for being here, Mike.
Thank you.
One more person that wants to ask a question. So Nestle got interrupted earlier because his dog was barking.
I apologize.
He wants to ask about the symposium. So
yeah, I apologize for my dog. Like something happened outside and he became really upset about it. I'm Dutch. Thank you. I was in the meantime I was reading the symposium that you linked, and maybe I overlooked it, but I can't find anything what you have said about the symposium. But could you please point out what you are referring to in the symposium?
So what are you asking about? That I said, everything I said.
Like in the beginning, you were like saying like, oh, you have this symposium where scientists were claiming that there is what exactly did you say about the symposium before?
She said the origin of life researchers said that they had no explanation, no good working hypothesis.
Let's see, I'm reading. Okay, so origin of life theory may be unlikely to be determined by scientific consensus in the near term. I was saying that there's no consensus, and then right under it, even there, it may be difficult to attain a consensus.
Now I see.
So I was saying there's no like consensus within their own community.
No, you are misunderstanding that quote. Like if you read the full quote, they are saying like, oh, there is no consensus of what would count as a complete theory. They aren't saying there is.
They cannot come to a consensus. The origin.
No, they can't. It doesn't say they cannot reach a consensus about the origin of life. They cannot consensus. It says they cannot reach a consensus on what counts as a complete theory. That's what it says. So that's what it says. So there's a very, very significant difference between those two statements. So,
well, Nestle, are you saying that they do have a consensus on the origin of life?
No, I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying that you are misinterpreting what it says. That's all I'm saying.
The paper takes a long time to read, and it's basically they just can't agree on stuff. They're trying to take new approaches because there's like the origin of life problem. Isn't that like in the first few sentences, the origin of life problem? You know, they're trying to solve it.
Of course, it's a like they are addressing that issue. Yes, so I don't know why that's. But all I'm saying is
there's not.
Well, right, sure, but all I'm saying is that you misread that statement as something that it does not mean. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and I'm saying that I'm pointing out that you are misreading.
They went on to say, we're like, they have some people thinking that we should do metabolism first and RNA first, and the scientists need to stop arguing about, we need to come together and It was a long paper.
It's a long paper indeed. I don't know to speak this long paper, but I'm just saying that your quote, you are misunderstanding what it says. That's all I'm saying about that.
They don't have.
So
keep going.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have another question?
Let's move on something else. I think one of the things
but a scientific question.
Right. Like you said about the how things in water tends to disperse across things. I mentioned before that in hydrothermal systems you have what is called like a porous environment, like you have micro compartments within the hydrothermal system, and that's when water percolates through that system, it tends to concentrate things up to 1,000-fold. I think so. Like one paper says that they can see.
These pores?
Like you know what a hydrothermal vent is, right?
Where? Okay, you're talking about pores. Where?
Okay, like you have what is called alkaline hydrothermal vents, and these hydrothermal vents have they are very porous. Like basically, when you look up at them very close, it looks like it looks like a labyrinth of channels and compartments and such. And what they are saying is
because there's different hypotheses like RNA world that conflicts with that the hydrothermal vent. Now it's another bit. So then, what do you think? So I'm assuming you think it was metabolism first.
Although I do think I do prefer metabolism first over genetics first. Yes.
Genetics first. So you think RNA first?
Oh, no, I think.
You think RNA would be stable?
It depends on what you mean. It depends on what you mean by RNA first. Like I do think RNA came before DNA, but I do not think that RNA was like the first organic chemical on Earth or something like that. No.
Then what do you think was first?
I think one of the first significant steps is I think the origin of an autocatalytic network that resembles metabolism.
Oh, so metabolism first.
I saw something like that. Although in a forum, what's commonly called an autocatalytic network, not exactly metabolism as it's currently seen in modern cells, but still something like that.
well, that's been like refuted and such. But all right.
All right. I don't know. Like, do you have a paper on where it's where metabolism first or something like that is refuted?
That's why most people are saying RNA first, and that's why I was like addressing the RNA first, because that's, if you want to say consensus, that's what I've seen most people approach me with, like the RNA first that they believe.
Oh yeah.
So
I think RNA first gets a lot of praise because that was one of the first significant hypotheses that came around.
I don't think it was possible either, buddy.
But I'm saying that the reason why RNA first is often named is because that was one of the first hypotheses around. But I'm saying not because it
first and protein first was one of the first hypotheses. I don't know the order in which they came about. But I don't even think I saw metabolism first in my biology book. So I don't know. I haven't looked much into that one because I haven't heard many scientists bring
but let's get back to the point that I was making about the concentration issue. Like you mentioned the concentration issue in water, right? And I'm just saying that the hydrothermal vent system solves that problem of concentration.
So then how did genetic material come out of a metabolism first theory?
Oh, that's a very long step. Like what you have in metabolism first is you have what's called core metabolism, where you have like the very small metabolites which are part of the citric acid cycle. And I assume you are aware of the citric acid cycle. What you are basically have there is everything in life comes from these chemicals, just these few, which is very strange.
So where does genetic material come in here?
Yeah, that's where it comes from. Like how you get
genetic. Well, they'd have to be genetics at some point. That's what I said to the last.
Yes, at some point, yeah, you have genetics. But what I'm saying is
that's incompatible with the conditions that you're talking about.
How so?
Because RNA is not stable, and eventually you need genetic material, right? That's why I was asking you.
RNA can be stabilized by various mechanisms. For example, as Pete shown, you have like I think small peptides can stabilize RNA too. It actually happens in the ribosome today.
So how was there peptides to stabilize it whenever?
No. I didn't say RNA came before peptides. I do think amino acids came before nucleotides.
Amino acids.
Because nucleotides are made from amino acids.
Sorry, amino acids make proteins. Right. So protein first. I don't know. I haven't heard about that.
But that's also interesting. Amino acids are also used as the precursor.
Anyway, these are minor processes that we're like debating over, and we haven't even got close to a bigger picture. And like I was pointing out, these different theories, none of them are working because there's serious problems with each of them. So if you say
name one problem and we can discuss it.
I have named so many problems. Okay, and
name one that we can discuss now.
We're kind of going in circles now. I think these are things we've kind of hashed out. So Nestle, thank you for being here, and maybe we can have a debate with Tayler another day.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. So, Tayler, thank you so much. This has been
You're welcome. I've been
amazing.
Really I'm glad we took dialogue, and got people to, come and share their opinions, because I love talking to people about this. It's easy to just be behind a keyboard and make comments and, pick people apart and bully them. But it's different to be up here actually speaking and, having dialogue. So I really promote open dialogue for that purpose, because I like to, I'm not afraid to talk to anyone about this. I'm very confident in my beliefs. And it was just wonderful for you to have me on here today. I don't think this is the first, I've done a debate before, but this is the first time I've ever went on somebody's live stream. So
awesome. Well, I absolutely loved it. Now we have one more visitor. Do you want to let another visitor on, or should we go ahead and wrap it up? Okay.
I'm getting a little tired, but let's keep going.
Okay. I think he's
No, let's
gonna
have
be
fun.
quick. He's gonna be quick. Hey, Sal.
Hi, Taylor. I'm Salvador Cordova. Pleasure finally meeting you. I have some comments and questions.
Okay.
I wanted to salute you for what you did this afternoon. I didn't have a chance to see your debates. I've actually been fed up dealing with the other side because I actually need to spend more time studying biology. The first question I had was, are you familiar with this book, The Stairway to Life? It echoes a lot of what you said. It's written
I've
by
never read any books. Everything. I think it's important to mention that all my points have been from myself, my own research. Stairway to Life. Okay, is that about abiogenesis?
Yes, it is written by a molecular cell biologist, and she was a postdoctoral student at Harvard. She was selected by a Nobel Prize winner, George Smith, to become a molecular cell biologist. I'm highly recommending it to you because she shares a lot of your views, a lot of what you articulated, and I just wanted to share that with you. Even though I'm sure you're able to more than defend your points because of your knowledge of cell biology, it doesn't hurt to see what some other people have said. So that was my first question. My second one, my cell biology textbook was by Bruce Alberts. Which ones have you read or do you like?
Cell biology textbooks. This is the one right here. Reading this one.
Who wrote it?
Albert Johnson, 4th edition. Lewis Rapp, Robert Walker.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
it's called The Cell. I know I haven't seen like this in many classrooms, but yep, it's so heavy. This is what I've been reading.
That's
Cool.
impressive.
Do you have another question, Sal?
Yes, just wanted to make one comment. I liked what you said about the lipid bilayers, and how do you feel about the transmembrane proteins and the translocation process needed to put it?
I mean, like that. This is interesting because like we're talking about like first steps here, like and there's so many other things required for life, except more than just RNA. Proteins. There is a whole host of things in the cell, and like the transmembrane proteins in the lipid bilayer. I mean, I don't know how they're ever going to tackle that.
Yeah, my feelings as well. And there are Discovery Institute videos. They have one that's just 10 minutes on the transmembrane proteins that has been critically acclaimed. So
has that been an argument for abiogenesis? Kind of what we're talking about.
It's been an argument against abiogenesis because Speed of Sound Mike came out and said, or some of these guys have been saying, oh, it's so easy to make a lipid bilayer. And it's like, okay, that's like making a soap bubble, but it's going to entomb the contents unless you have transport in and out of the cell that's regulated. And so I didn't want them to take a cheap shot at you because I was hoping you would put the thing on transmembrane proteins because I mean,
you can go on forever about impossibilities. The cell is so intricate, and all of these are required for life. Like even the simplest cell, all of these things are required. We're talking about a couple things here, but there's a host of other things that are necessary that we can't even begin to start talking about. And yeah, like just as our knowledge of biology and the cell increases, it's just becoming more difficult to answer these questions. And that's why I think that the theory of abiogenesis and the problems with it is more significant than other things like, the germ theory, or, does the sun rotate around the earth? And you can look and find that out. But the more that we're looking, the harder it's getting to answer. This theory was created whenever they thought the cell was a blob of jelly. And now we're finding out about transmembrane proteins, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, and we can't even create a cell from scratch in the lab. That's how hard it is to create a cell. If you take the components that a cell is composed of and start from scratch, you cannot compose a living cell, or we have not been able to compose a living cell. That's just how complex it is. And even the simplest forms of life are going to require these necessary mechanisms.
Well, that's all I had to say. Thank you for having me on, Rebecca. And it's great finally meeting you, Taylor.
Yes. Nice to
Thanks
meet
for
you.
being here, Sal.
Yep. Take care.
Okay.
God bless you.
God
Bye-bye.
bless you. Bye-bye. Well, Tayler, thank you so much for being here. This was really amazing. I hope you'll come back. I'm sure that my audience would love to talk to you again. In fact, we already have requests in the chat for more people who want to come on, but I told them we're wrapping it up for today, but we can have a part 2 if you're interested. So,
well, I hope you enjoyed it. It's probably been different than your other streams, huh?
Well, it's great. I love it. Yeah, I mean, is it different? I haven't most people don't just want to invite people on and let anyone talk. So there are a few guests I've had that have said, let anybody on. But I've really loved that. I love your boldness, and thank you everyone who's been in the chat. You guys have been great, and hope everyone has a good day. And tomorrow's Pentecost. We're going to celebrate the Holy Spirit coming and the power of God. So God bless you guys.
Bless
and
everybody
I'm not
in the chat. I hope even the people that were criticizing me, I hope that you find peace. I hope everybody deserves respect, even the atheists. So all of us should be treating each other with respect on both sides, and just promote kindness and love, because otherwise we will never have these conversations. But it's been wonderful.
Thank you. Yep, loved it. Okay, bye everybody.